Good morning and welcome to Metro Community College. I am Randy Schmazel, the one and only college president we have. A lot of people think we have a number of college presidents, and I can assure you, no, it's one. We're a college of ones. We have one academic vice president, one dean of students. So for those that are taxpayers of the Fort County, you're getting your money's worth with the Metro administration. We just don't have many of us, right, Mr. Owens? Not many. So it's always my pleasure to welcome guests, especially to the Fort Omaha campus and the Swanson Conference Center. And you know, whether this be your first visit or your return guest, certainly feel free to walk around and see all what there is to offer here in the Culinary Institute. This is a facility that opened in November of 2009. It's heavily used by the community and the college. It's about 35,000 square feet, and it's home of our culinary program, one of the top culinary schools in America. And students from all over the United States come to the Culinary Institute. It's one of our only national programs that attracts a national audience. Otherwise, most of our programs are for the Fort County area that we serve, Douglas, Sarpy, Washington, and Dodge County. Let's move to today's topics because they're quite timely, and some of them are alarming and even daunting. And you know, in 2010, I did a little research on what it costs per year for incarcerated individuals in the state of Nebraska, and it ranged from $18,000 to $68,000. You know, and that's an average cost per inmate, not a salary. 25% of our citizens and about 25% of our applicants that come through the college have a record. So once you have a record, you have a record, as you know that. And you know, the self-sufficiency requirements for income and job seekers are what employment is all about. And for the ex-offender and for those that have a record, at times if you're not able to get a job, there's two options: government assistance or go back to what caused you to get your record. And at the college here, we're very interested in helping individuals obtain self-sufficiency through education. Our circle of influence and our circle at the college is education. We're not an agency, we're not a government agency, we're not the IRS, we're not the Immigration and Naturalization Service. We're a community college, and our responsibility is education. And you know, many factors involved in job training and life skills, healthcare, support groups. It takes people like yourself committed to do those things in order to assemble an affordable education, not only here at the college, but once you're done at the college. So our belief here is that the entire community is the stakeholders in this, and we appreciate you all coming today and getting together as partners to talk about the conversation it's going to take in your role in business and agencies to make a difference. A lot of times I get questions from the community in regard to this. How come Metro doesn't step up and do more? And my comment always is, when it comes to education, we'll do whatever we have to do. Getting outside of our education box becomes somewhat of a quandary for us because funding has gone to others in the community. Opportunity to provide services is with others, and so we don't want to overstep our boundaries. So it's a fine line we walk between what we do at the college and education and what we do to support what you're involved in. And it works the best if we all stay in our own circles and maximize what we do and how we do it. So this is your community college and your community, and as you hear our ads on TV, we talk about my college and my community. We hope you feel the same way. So welcome to Metro today, and enjoy yourself, and have a good opportunity here together to partner. So thank you very much.
we're just going to skip the first part because unfortunately our first speaker, Blaine, couldn't make it today. So we're going to go on ahead to Angela Hammett, who is the HR manager at Eastern Nebraska Community Action Partnership.
Thank you for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Angela Hammett, and I've been the HR manager with NCAP, known as Eastern Nebraska Community Action Partnership, for over 4 years, and I'm very happy to be here. What I will be discussing with you is, and I'll try to sound like that favorite TV character, what you talking about, Willis? But in regards to this comment, I will be talking about understanding negligent hiring liability and how to determine if your company's blanket policy may be considered as discriminatory. I'd first like to start by asking, I'm assuming that a majority of you are employers, but may I see the hands of actual human resources professionals? Okay, good, too. Hello, sisters. Okay, I'd like to start by telling you about the EEOC guidance. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has issued out a new guidance to employers regarding criminal background checks. And the purpose of this guide is to make sure that the employers have informative information in regards to the use of arrest and conviction records and making employment decisions. So it's in regards to, or it ties into Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And for those of you who may not be familiar with this act prohibits the discrimination of applicants, candidates, and employees based on race, color, national origin, as well as their sex and their religion. When your company has a policy that actually stipulates we will not hire anyone with a criminal record or with a felony or misdemeanor, or a felony and or misdemeanor with the exception of a minor traffic violation, that agency, that company can be potentially put at risk. Why? Because an applicant, a candidate, or even one of their employees can sue them for employment discrimination. Now, in this guide, it talks about 2 particular factors of employment discrimination. And the first one is called disparate treatment, and the second, disparate impact. And I'd like to give you an example of both factors. Under disparate treatment, this is where an employee intentionally discriminates against an applicant or a candidate. And let me give you a scenario here. We have Todd and we have Jamal. Todd is Caucasian, Jamal is African American. They both have similar skills. They both are applying for the same position. They both were interviewed, and they're being considered for a second interview. During their first interview, they self-disclosed that they were arrested while they were a teenager for in possession of a small level of marijuana. And incidentally, both of them self-identified as having this particular arrest. How it becomes a disparate treatment, intentional discrimination, is that both are very similar, qualified, but let's just give Jamal a couple more points. But because he was African American, they chose Todd, when in essence, based on everything, the criminal background check, but the interview, the experience in education, he came out a little bit ahead of Todd, but yet Todd was selected. And let me even put another spin to that, because some of you might say, well, sometimes that happens. Maybe Jamal may have more experiences, but maybe there was something else that gave Todd the edge. Well, based on my scenario, I hadn't informed you that Malik had a little bit more on the edge, but Todd was selected. But Jamal was actually referred by one of the employees of the company. So when the hiring manager came out in the hallway and talked to another colleague, and the colleague had said, well, how did the interview go? I understand that you selected someone. He says, yeah, I selected, this Todd guy. Interestingly, both of them had a conviction record, but I chose Todd. And the colleague asked why. And he said, well, Todd, he got arrested for a small ounce of marijuana in his possession, but he was reckless. He did something stupid. But the colleague said, well, you told me that Jamal had a similar, account and he wasn't selected. Yeah, but you know how they are. The potentiality of them committing another crime while employed with us is very high. So that was overheard and the rest is history. What I shared with you was an actual case. That's disparate treatment. The next one is disparate impact. Disparate impact. And this is where an employer is not doing anything intentionally wrong to discriminate against an applicant, candidate, or an employee. But what tends to happen here with disparate impact is that it typically it typically associates itself with a policy, a standard that this company abides by. Let me give you an example. Let's use John, who's Caucasian, and Malik, who's African American. Now, they both applied for different positions. They both did well, again, being considered for a second interview, but they ran a background check. Now, Todd's background check was clean, but Jamal's had a arrest or conviction, not a felony, perhaps a misdemeanor, and it was 10 years ago. But their policy stipulates that we cannot hire anyone with a record. How is this an impact? It impacts particular groups, protected groups, which are women, minorities, people over the age of 40, and those with disabilities. So, since majority of you probably know that the high risk of African American males being incarcerated is extremely high. So therefore, it was a disparate impact on the ethnic or the racial group of African Americans, because the majority, there's a high level of African American males that would not be able to be employed with this company because they may have some record in their past. And regardless, so we have to be extremely careful when we're drawing up or reviewing our policies, because again, in this scenario, the company stated no one will be employed with our company if they have a record, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the time frame involved. Excuse me. Before I continue, I'd like to provide you with some stats. 92% of employers utilize some form of criminal background checks, and it will increase. 1 out of 17 white males will or have been incarcerated. 1 in 6 Hispanic males will serve time in jail, and 1 in 3 African American males will serve time. In the last 20 years, there has been a significant increase in Americans, we're not talking about ethnic group here, Americans going to prison. Arrest incarceration rates are particularly high, as I stated before, in the African American and Hispanic communities, predominantly with the males. However, keep this in mind too. We're very concerned about the risk, the liability of hiring, potentially hiring those who have had prison records. But 30% of employees currently working whose background check was clear at the initial hiring, they are stealing their companies blind. Stealing their companies blind. So you might say, well, the risk is more higher, but really. So you really have to think about things that may be going on in your company that you might not have acknowledgement of, because these individuals have not been caught. It's just a thought. It's not to sway your opinion. Yes, you have to be considerate about the risk and the liability with hiring anyone in this particular state of mind. So what are we asking employers to do? What is the purpose of this forum today? Well, first I'd like to strongly recommend that you download the new guide from EEOC regarding criminal background checks. And after this forum, if you wish to give me your business card with your email address, I can do the work for you. But if you wish to do it your own, just go ahead and Google EEOC new guidance for criminal background checks. Secondly, review your current policy on conducting background checks. This is vital because a lot of us, including NCAP, and we will be correcting this, will have to change based on the compliance of the EEOC. Now, I said guide. It is not yet law. It is not yet a regulation, but stay tuned. Next, ask yourself or ask your management, the upper management, why is our company actually conducting background checks? Is it to get the best of the best? I already shared with you 30% of your potential or your best employees are probably doing something fraudulent or robbing you blind. Is it to minimize the risk and the liability? Is it to combat theft and fraud or workplace violence? All of these are viable reasons to why you want to select the best of the best. But who is to say someone who is a returning citizen who has talent and skills and abilities cannot be that best of the best? You want to also consider 3 factors when hiring someone, when that acknowledgement that they do have some type of criminal background history, but yet they did well in the interview. You may not want to, right now we're saying don't necessarily brush them off. Give these 3 factors consideration. So the first one would be to look at the nature of the offense. When did it happen? Or better yet, the who, what, whens, wheres, and hows. Get the information first. Then look at the time involved when that offense took place, when the incarceration took place, and the time when that individual was released, up to the point where they're interviewing sitting in front of you. Lastly, make sure that you can tie, if you're thinking about risk and liability, make sure that you can tie that offense to the actual function of the job. I'm talking about essential functions, why you're looking at this candidate to hire. Let me give you an example. So I want you to think about the job function as well as business necessity. Let me give you this example at a bank. So we're hiring for a bank, a customer representative, and John comes in, no particular ethnic group, but he just comes in and applies for this position. He goes through the process, he's being strongly considered, the background check has been processed. When they get it back, they see that John has been in jail, not prison, but served some time because he had committed fraud, credit card fraud, customer service at a bank. Are you following me? Now, the incident, I said, take everything into consideration. Does it tie into him being customer service rep? Absolutely. This customer service representative, one of their essential functions is to handle customer accounts, which would include credit cards. So yes. Secondly, the time frame. Now, with John's situation, it's just been 6 months since he was released. Okay? Then thirdly, how does it really impact the function of the job? Well, I say very high. And you're factoring in the time frame. But let's let's put another spin to it. What if it was 10, 15, 20 years ago? Maybe that would change the outlook. So you as employers, HR professionals, you have the right to ask questions, to make a determination, but we're asking that you do it in the right manner. So in this particular situation, because of the timing, John was not selected for that position. Know that there are flaws also in the system. If there's regarding expungements, you need to know that sometimes if a candidate says, well, my arrest was expunged, it may have been, but you know what? It may not have been updated in that particular agency's database. So keep that in mind as well. Understand the difference of an arrest versus a conviction. Arrest does not guarantee that there was any wrongdoing. You have to go through investigation, pleading guilty or not guilty, go through court, etc. However, a conviction, of course, does give an indication of evidence that there was wrongdoing. Train your management team about employment discrimination. If you do not hire based on criminal background check, then make sure if you don't hire that person because of their criminal background check, make sure that you document and justify, validate why you made that decision. When asking questions about the criminal record, keep it to job specificness. Lastly, keep the criminal background check information confidential. Make sure that you don't make snide comments. Any hiring manager and HR professional that does do this may not need to be in that capacity, because we all should know to be very sensitive and not make discriminatory, disparage remarks. In closing, there is always some level of risk with hiring individuals. We know that you want to hire individuals who have the talent, who are trustworthy, reliable, and honest, but you can find all of these valuable traits in our returning citizens. We just have to make sure that we do a thorough, proper, and fair assessment or screening of these individuals so that we can minimize the risk. Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to introduce Sandra Love. She is the job coordinator at NCAP. And this is her.
Morning, everyone. Basically, in your folder, it says I am Job Employment Coordinator, which has moved to Employment Initiative Manager. And the reason why we go by the Employment Initiative Manager is because we are realizing that when we are working with individuals for employment, we have to look at any and all aspects that wrap around that individual for employment. So we look at the whole of the individual, not just on the job training, but what is and what will keep that person on the job. So we look at job retention from day one when we start with an individual in our workshop. We look at doing a career assessment on them, finding out what they need, where their skills lie. We look at what are some of the barriers that are going on in their lives that's keeping them from finding employment, whether it's due to transportation, not understanding how to solve problems, or a team player communication. So a lot of our components start basically with the life skills. So we start there looking at the individual for making sure if there's additional education that is needed, training that is needed. How do they make their decisions? Where do they look for jobs? So we work with them to assist them in being competitive and being able to stay on the job. One of the things I love about what we do, my participants in my particular workshop are not just individuals with a challenged background or criminal history. It's anyone looking for employment. You can be underemployed, not employed, or you haven't had employment for several years, or your employment has been shaky, it isn't steady. You don't stay on a job very long. What is that problem? So we address the whole of the individual. And then from there, we go into employment training skills, how to stay on the job, how to look for the job, how to speak to employers, what is your interview skills. What do employers need? So I try to work with employers as well as the applicants to to find where their concerns are, where there may be some problems that they have run into, and how to keep them from having that revolving door. So I work with the participants in our 13-week workshop to make sure that they understand things from an employer perspective. So when they go in prepared and ready. A lot of my participants could be persons who are recently released from the criminal institution, or it could be that they've had some jail time, or they could have been hit with a fine. But that still means that they have a criminal record. It can be someone who had, two of the individuals I'm speaking or thinking of, our persons has been on their job for 19 years is one. The other one has been on their job for 9 years. But they both lost their job recently due to our economy, and now they're trying to go back out there to find employment. Where their criminal history, one is 35 years ago. The other one has been 20 plus years. But now when the background check is being run, they are stating that we can't hire anyone that has a criminal history. And the one criminal history that he had was joyriding when he was 18 years old. You think that's a closed file, but it isn't. And that has now come back up, and that is hitting him. And this is a person who's educated, who has a degree, who's been on his job recently for 19 years, but now that he's back out there, he's finding it difficult, and employers are constantly telling him, we run the background check, you did not pass the background check, therefore you're not eligible. When he has all of the qualifications, but based on a policy and not the individual of who he is and what he can bring to the company, he's being told he cannot be hired. This creates a snowball effect. Our job is trying to assist them to be able to keep them motivated, keep them moving on, and work with employers to understand that we understand your concerns, but what can we do? How can we assist you? That when we send you a qualified applicant, you're looking at the applicant for the skills and the abilities that he's going to bring you to make it a win-win situation, not only for your company, but for him as well, and to keep moving forward rather than automatically saying he's disqualified simply for a history that's been in the back. That's pretty much what we do. We have a success rate of about 37% of individuals that we assist with getting employed. They have been on the job. I have several individuals that have been on the job anywhere from 9 months up to 2 years plus. What I like to do is find out from employers, what do you need and how can we best assist you with helping you to locate the right candidates. If additional training is some concerns. In your packet, you see there's some information on fidelity bonding, your tax credit information that is there to assist you. We like to know what can we do to assist the participant being able to move forward and to help you where you don't have to look as diligently, but allow us to assist you with the help of finding some qualified applicants, and not simply hire them because it's a person who comes to you with a challenging background, but to look at them seriously and give them an opportunity to apply for the job with an open mind and a level ground. Short and sweet. Questions or concerns?
Are you saying that you have a pool of people that can access the jobs that might be there?
Yes, we do. And we have a workshop, 13 weeks in length, and I have individuals that come to our workshop and they stay in touch with me, and they can be anywhere from entry level to persons with a professional background and our degree, and we stay with them. So I work with an individual anywhere from the 13 weeks up to 2 years, and we do case management on that to see where they're going, what they're doing. We have our behavior health department, so if there's communication, anger management, we continue to assist and to work with them on those levels. We provide a network for them as well and a support system. And yes, I do have a pool of qualified candidates. And that can be anywhere from, as I said, customer service, entry level, data entry, IT, social work. I have culinary arts individuals there, secretaries, so we have a little bit of everything. Construction workers, you name it, we have it. No questions?
Yeah, you just answered.
Okay. Can you tell me what are some of your concerns as to why or what you feel about looking at a qualified candidate and giving them an opportunity? Because what we're trying to do is to teach them that they have to sell themselves. And yes, an employer is concerned about making sure that they hire the best candidate. But if you sell yourself, there is that exception to the rule that if you can show them that your past is in your past and you qualify for that position, they will give you that opportunity. But at the same time, I need to know from you employers, is that something that is and can and will be considered? Or are we just having another pipe dream? Yes, ma'am.
What about dress code? Because some of the people I know, I would like to hire, and I'm a new company, and so I'm looking at, I'm sorting all this stuff out. But when I see young people sagging and all that stuff, and I know they got oodles of talent, but I don't want them walking around with their pants halfway down.
Glad you asked that question. I am old-fashioned. I'm a stickler about dress code. I think it's very important. We do spend quite a bit of time on the dress code. We let them know that simply because that's who you are and that's what you want to do, that's great. But employers also have an image that they need to uphold. And they have a choice as you have a choice. So if you don't want to adhere to their dress code, then it is not the employer that did not select you. It's you have chose not to select that employer. We also have a professional clothes closet that I do work with individuals, so we do assist them in that area. So we do definitely talk about dress code, and that's for males as well as females, young as old, because I work with individuals anywhere from 19, 20, all the way up to 60 plus. So, and some of our older persons need to pull those pants up, and I do provide belts.
And I was gonna say that, Sandra, I hate that everybody wanna use that dress code thing. You know, if you've got a young man or a young woman that comes in and they show you all of the skills and the ability that really has that good thing, that quality that you need, and if they're not dressed appropriately, you said, I'd like to hire you, but you cannot work with me in the attire that you have. You know, we don't need to see booty crack. All of this kind of stuff coming up in here, excuse me, guys. You know, but I mean, we don't need to see that. And I think as a teacher and as a mother and as a grandmother, for me, I'm gonna say, you're gonna have to change your dress code because I like what you're saying. And we need to knock that out because that image that we have, even in the media, has set the code, has set that dress standard, and young people just haven't been told. But when you come to programs like we have at INCAP and the other lifestyle programs, you teach them that if you're gonna go out for an interview, this is how you need to dress. But I don't think that dress code ought to handle it. And then it depends upon the kind of work. If you got somebody going out there digging ditches, you don't need to come dressed up in no suit. Thank you.
For me, on a dress code is not just going for the interview. I let them know, find out what the dress code is for the environment that you're gonna be in for work on a day-to-day basis. So once an individual is in my workshop, because it's a choice, and you can choose to be here, but do understand that I'm gonna hold you accountable. When you come to our workshop for that 13 weeks, 2 days a week, this is your place of employment. And I treat it as such. Your appearance count here and now. So you have the opportunity to be employers and decide would you hire you if you looked and saw you in the mirror.
I'm curious, where is the workshop held?
We have our workshop at INCAP, which is at 2406 Fowler Avenue. Currently, I'm in one right now that started on October 16, and that will run through the end of December. This particular workshop is on Tuesday, Thursdays, and it runs from 1 to 4:30. I usually have it on Monday and Wednesday. We work with a lot of organizations within the community, so they come either that way, referral, you can always call, and I let everyone know a week prior to when we start our workshop date. So at that time, you can definitely get on our roster for enrollment for the upcoming workshop that will be starting probably around the second week of January.
Is there transportation provided?
No, ma'am, that's one of the things that, like I said, we look at barriers. So when you take a job, you have to look at where that job is. So when you say, yes, I'm willing to take that, transportation is one of the things you have to be able to maintain for yourself. So transportation we look at, learning how to do time management, the problem solving, decision making, all of those things are things that we work out. I believe in having an A, B, C, and in some case D backup plan. So when they work with me, those are a lot of the things that we discuss. Budget, how do you set up your budget? How do you prepare for this? What is the cost that's going to handle? So when you take a job and you say, well, I can't afford to go out there because I have to hit the bus route. One of the things that I asked them, was that not a consideration? The job didn't change. You knew where it was when you went on the interview. We have to plan for that. So transportation is one of the issues, one of the barriers that they may have that we work on as well. I thank you for your time.
Next, I'd like to introduce Myrnie Haney. She is an attorney from Legal Aid of Nebraska.
Hi, I've been asked to speak because Legal Aid has some experience helping people get convictions set aside and dealing with criminal records. As I've listened to people talk this morning, it's dawned on me what drives a lot of employers is insurance. And Omaha is facing an economic reality. We are excluding a significant portion of our workforce because our insurers are mandating how we conduct business. I can tell you that in Nebraska, if you've ever been arrested, there's a 99.99% chance that that is going to appear on any background check, regardless of the validity of the arrest or the fact that you were never prosecuted for that arrest. Even though the law says that that should become a non-public record if you weren't charged, it should be a non-public record if you were in a diversion program after 2 years, and it should be a non-public record under other circumstances. People who do background checks will always be able to get access to court records, so your non-public records will always be public. As employers, and I can tell you the one profession where we don't do background checks is mine, and it's probably a good thing. So, from a personal standpoint. In Nebraska, we do not have any mechanism that would forgive a youthful indiscretion or a mistake as an adult. A significant number of states have recognized that affects their economic base or workforce base, and so they have mechanisms by which if you perform A, B, or C, your record will become non-public, which means nobody ever will get access to that. In Nebraska, what we have are three mechanisms. One is you can expunge a arrest that was a mistake. I can tell you that's a significantly high standard, unlikely to be granted, and county attorneys associations as well as police will come out and force to object to anybody who wants to get an arrest removed because it was an error. The other thing you can do is ask for a pardon. A pardon is a forgiveness from the governor and the Board of Pardons. And I think our recent press should give everybody an indication about how successful that kind of activity might be if you go before the Board of Pardons. It's a stacked deck because we live in a racist society and we live in a racist state, and that's our reality. So it's a forgiveness. The third thing that people can do is ask for what's called a set-aside. A set-aside is an order from a court that nullifies your conviction and restores all of your civil liberties except cleaning your record. So it can only be granted if you were on probation and successfully completed probation. The majority of the United States would take that same offense and make it a non-public record. The materials in your, I think that have been put together today are great. We've helped people get set-asides for their convictions because insurers demand that. Okay, so I have a number of young women who had a youthful indiscretion, get picked up for shoplifting, do their probation. By the way, the idea behind probation is, look, we think this was a mistake on your part, we the judicial system, we're gonna put you on probation, you do what you're supposed to do, and then get on with your life. Become a productive citizen, except for the fact that this will always hamstring you. You know, so the judicial system is working in one direction and defeating itself by hamstringing, you know, people who take advantage of it. Employers may ask, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Now, a kid who was 17 and got busted for shoplifting, who has their conviction set aside, may say no, because they've been told by a young public defender or a young attorney or even a judge, you don't have to report this because your conviction has been set aside. An employer will do a background check, and since everything is there, they will think that somebody's falsified their application. The same is true with a pardon. When somebody gets their crime forgiven, they think it comes off their record. When you say, we've restored all of your civil liberties, you can do everything. Somebody may be under the mistaken impression that their record has been cleared. That reality just doesn't exist in Nebraska. We got into the set-aside business because we had a number of young women who were guilty of youthful indiscretions, with which I personally sympathized. Anyway, and they were trying to work. That's our economic reality. They wanted to work. They went to school, they got trained as a certified nursing assistant, a med tech. It was an entry-level employment, and a background check eliminated them from employment at a nursing home or a medical facility. And so once getting the set aside, though, that's a guarantee for insurers, okay? A set aside is not easy to get. And I tell people that we used to help take your order for the set aside with you and tell your employer. It's easy for me to say wear your faults on your sleeve. It's not easy for people who've been branded as less than acceptable to wear their faults on their sleeves. So when they say they've had something set aside, there's no fanfare on a criminal record. It just says set aside. An employer doesn't know what that means. So I encourage people to take your order, which is a nullification of the conviction. It is a determination by a judge that you do not present a risk to the community. You have done everything that you're supposed to do, and there's no issue here regarding public welfare. That helps insurers, and so it should help employers do what you want to do. But the reality is, until Nebraska joins the ranks of states where we recognize that a lot of people make mistakes which should be forgiven, because if they aren't forgiven and eliminated from the public eye, we are shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of our workforce, then we're always going to run into this difficulty. Now, just to answer a question, for a set aside for a conviction or a pardon, or something that should be a non-public record, but isn't really, law enforcement always has access to that, so do county attorneys. So it's not as if somebody can commit a crime and then not have that count against them if something else happens down the road. So law enforcement and the public are always protected. And nobody ever gets out from underneath the effect of their indiscretions or their mistakes. What this does is put everybody on a level playing field in terms of competing with people of the same talent when they're trying to work. And all of our clients who have accessed this mechanism All they want is to work. All they want is to not be dependent on the state. All they want is to provide for their families. It's really heartening to see that. What's disheartening is to see that even when they get this, sometimes it just doesn't make a difference. So I just wanted to make those things available to you. Those materials are included in your packet. I think the materials from the EEOC were great, and I think it makes sense to talk to people about their convictions. Anybody who grew up in the 60s or 70s, there but for the grace of the color of our skin, go we. If I had been as policed as other people were in the 60s and 70s, I would have a criminal record. I don't. And there's a reason for that. So talk to people about their offenses. I have anecdotes I could share with you, but then, I'd run out of time. So if you have any particular questions about set-asides or the effect or what that should do with insurers, I'd be happy to answer those.
Really, aren't set-asides only available for misdemeanors?
No, they're available for felonies. They're harder to get, and I would we make this available to people on a self-help basis when we have a packet for people to get set-asides. I recommend that people get an attorney to get a set-aside for a felony. And I can give you an example. The one example I have of felonies, we were able to get a gentleman a set-aside of a manslaughter conviction that had happened 25 years previously, who the Board of Pardons refused to pardon.
So you have to go back to the judge that did the initial sentencing?
If they're still on the bench, yes. Yes, which is a good thing. Yes?
Just a little clarity here, because I've heard this several times. If you're not on probation, say a young lady committed shoplifting in 2009.
Right.
She's not on probation. Can she or can she not in 2012 get a set-aside?
You should be able to get, there's no standard for when you can apply for a set-aside. In my experience, the rule of thumb is 3 years, okay? So if she went to jail, she cannot get a set-aside. You can only get a set-aside if you were fined. You can be sentenced to jail and be put on probation, but if you have gone to jail, you cannot get a set-aside. Now, I'll tell you where it gets confusing. And there are a lot of convictions where somebody gets jail and credit for time served, okay? I think that's iffy. And I've gone forward and encouraged people to ask for set-asides under those circumstances because they didn't spend time in jail as a result of the conviction. But you can have a conviction, not be sentenced to jail time subsequent to the conviction, and you're eligible for a set-aside. My rule of thumb, 3 years. And no other criminal activity in that 3-year period of time. So if you did shoplifting in 2009 and then got busted 15 times for driving under suspension the next 3 years, I wouldn't recommend applying. Yeah, it's a 3-year kind of like clean slate rule. Yes?
What reasoning does Nebraska give for maintaining set-asides and notifications as public records?
Well, they don't have one. I think that,
Have they considered, or, has that come up for consideration or like this?
I haven't, heard that. I think the only argument that could be successful is this is an economic reality for us, and we are eliminating a huge portion of our workforce. I think that the political atmosphere is more amenable to that now than it has been in the past. My experience is that we, as a state society, once somebody is marginalized for one reason, they become marginalized forever. And so we just leave all sorts of people outside this box, which gets smaller and smaller. There's an interesting article in the paper last night about our recovery in Nebraska is not on pace. That is not from the recession. That is not related to what we are doing to our workforce. There are powerful forces in this community who, if they put their mind to it, could bring to bear on the legislature the reality that you are hamstringing us as employers. And we need that to stop. Because I think the collective experience of people who hire people with criminal backgrounds, they're afraid to talk about it so that people won't see it, so that employers are afraid to talk about it. They don't want the public to know, hey, it works out for us. But employers who are afraid to do that, I think if they came together and say, quit hamstringing us, and our insurers are mandating how we conduct business. It's not a good way to conduct business, as we all know from healthcare. You know, insurers should not be mandating how we hire and use employees.
I have found that a lot of my participants are telling me, and I'm finding in some cases it is true, that when their charge can be either dropped or dismissed, but it does not always show up on their criminal record. Is that the case?
That the charge shows up on the criminal record even though it was dismissed?
Yes, even though it's been dismissed or dropped from a felony down to a misdemeanor, that doesn't always show up, or if it's been dismissed or dropped.
Right, and here's the loophole. I mean, 2 years ago, the legislature, at the behest of Marty Conboy, interestingly enough, who was our city attorney at that time, changed the law so that some records became non-public. The loophole to that law is that the court records will not change, okay? So anybody who can access the court database, and employers can do that, or background screening people can do that, background screening agencies can do that, as long as they pay a fee, will be able to access all your non-public records until the court decides it's going to make some of its records non-public. So even though the law gives you a remedy on one hand, it takes it away with the other. We're going to give you a little bit of leeway here, but not too much. And that was just a matter of time. You know, once employers and background screening agencies figured out that they could pay a fee to subscribe to the court database, then all of the benefit of that law was erased. And the legislature did that, Teresa, because they were looking at the economic reality to the state. Let's make this non-public because it's catching too many people in the trap. So I think we're making progress. You know, it's just a matter of closing up the loophole and, you know, hammering away at that reality. So thanks for your attention, and if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Next we have Tommy Wilson. She's with Metro Community College.
You know, the best thing that is happening is our discussion today. We're talking about things and we're learning facts about what's going on. But it always amazes me. I've never heard of a set-aside. I never knew that this could be, I hear of pardons, but we don't know. But what's happening in our communities today is that we're beginning to talk about what's going on. And I was told that I had 10 minutes, but I can go forever because I'm history. But I'm gonna try to limit. They even told me, they even wrote me a script, and I've never even followed a script, but I'm gonna try. Good morning. I'm Tommy Wilson, and I'm the community liaison for Metro Community College. I am a retired teacher, 38 years in Omaha Public Schools. I'm a civic leader. I've been the former NAACP president. I've worked for United Way, and about 2008, when I left the NAACP, Randy asked me, tell me, what are you going to do now? Because I'm always doing things. I said, you know that 1997 Taurus I was driving? It's blown up. I said, and I need me a new car. So here I am trying to work for a new car and at the same time make a difference. And I'm so happy to be here. I just hate that we just don't come to these meetings. Metro is the best kept secret in Nebraska. I'm going to go back to my text a little bit. Yes, I know what we are doing, young man over there by Sam. We have a list. We have a list of friendly employers. And I have that list, and that's one of the things that I do. I send that list out of people who will actually hire or are friendly to ex-offenders. We also have put together a resource book, and many of you have that resource book, where when offenders get out, they can find jobs, they can find the resources, they can find the needs that they have in the community, to find legal aid, to help them with getting on with their life and to have a sustainable life. I came to Metro hoping that Metro could be that avenue for ex-offenders. And we really are already, not for just ex-offenders. We are a re-entry program for those who are homemakers who have been at home and want to start a new life, those who want to change careers. That's what we do. The only thing is that I was hoping that we could get training or provide some financial aid and all of those kinds of things for our ex-offenders. But that comes under another stipulation. Education empowers people. And we know that education is knowledge. Everything we're talking about today is about empowering people to get a second chance. What we do at Metro Community College is one piece of that empowerment process. When I arrived at MCC, I was asked, Tommy, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to help people learn about Metro Community College and what it has to offer. So I gave myself a title, the Community Liaison. Anything you want to know, let's come and talk about it and see how Metro can fit into the community. And what you have noticed, whenever you go to any meeting and you're introduced, you'll always find somebody that says that I'm from Metro Community College. Little did I know about the programs of Metro. Being here for 44 years, because I'm a teacher recruit, back in the 60s when they had no teachers in the secondary education, my husband and I were recruited. Ozzie Wilson was the first head black football coach in the state of Nebraska, and I helped move into the integration of our secondary schools. And so we've been here doing things, working with our community, but never did I know what Metro had to offer. Let's talk about a few things. Did you know that Metro Community College has 8 locations in 4 counties? 3 campuses, Fort Omaha, South Omaha, and Elkhorn Valley. 4 centers, Washington County Technology Center in Blair, Fremont Area Center, Applied Technology Center in Irvington, and Sarpy County Center in La Vista. And our latest addition is the Metro Community Express at 24th and Vinton in South Omaha. This center is dedicated to the needs of the neighborhood: GED, ESL, and adult education. Metro Community College Express about getting people in the path of training that will make a difference in their lives and their family lives. This is the first of its kind at Metro Community College. And look for more sites that are developing, and that's going to be in our future. Metro Community College is a tax-supported, publicly funded institution. In 2010 and 2011, Metro Community College derived most of its revenues from state aid, 20.9%, and property taxes, 44.5%, and the remainder came from tuitions and fees, 33.5%. Our faculty and staff performs both in the classroom and out. Many of them are involved in the community, civic and business association, as well as continuing their own education, and many also teach in other areas of the educational institutions. Our students are diverse. About 25% are minorities. We built an avatar of our average students, and she is a 28-year-old working mother, attending class part-time in the South Omaha campus, taking classes in IT, sociology, psychology, and math. Metro Community College offers more than 100 1- and 2-year career programs in business administration, computer and office technologies, culinary arts, industrial and construction technologies, nursing and allied health, social sciences and services, and visual and electronic technologies, as well as academic transfer programs. General support courses, classes for business and industry, and continuing education courses are also an important part of our college service in the community. We offer all the help to empower people to build better lives. And in today's economy, education and training are critical for a sustainable livelihood. I didn't put my back teeth in. More education translates into higher earning. Students obtaining a 1-year certificate earned 81% more than someone without a high school diploma, and 16% more than a high school graduate. For every credit hour a student completes at Metro Community College, they will increase their annual income an average of $146 a year with increased productivity. Educated, trained workers benefit everyone. Every dollar of state or local tax money invested in Metro Community College today will return $3.50. Education creates an incentive for positive change, and educated people are less likely to smoke, to abuse alcohol, to draw welfare or unemployment benefits, or even commit crimes. And that's why we know that education is important. We know that education makes the difference. Education leads to better employability, higher wages, and ultimately lower recidivism rate. But it's just one part of the helping people achieve self-sufficiency. Part of Metro Community College outreach is to ex-offenders. I spent at least twice a month going to the correctional centers, and I'm talking about Lincoln and Tecumseh, outstate of Omaha. We go to Douglas County, we're in there, we're working with them, and we're getting a feel of what they need, what they like to do, where they like to go once they are returned back into our community. I host a monthly table talk write it down now, every third Wednesday of the month. Every third Wednesday from 10 to 12, right here in this building, in this room, we host from 50 to 70 people that come and we educate each other to talk about what is going on in the community. How can we bridge that gap? How can we stop that recidivism rate? What are you doing? And it's a networking kind of thing. So you would get to know that our services are so redundant, but if you're doing something in your community or at your agency, let's bridge that gap. Let's do a collaborative thing. And that's what we try to do. We bring speakers in to talk about what the issues that we've never heard about. I want to call you Maureen. That was my mother's name, but your name is Marnie, isn't it?
Close, right.
Okay, that's close. Okay, so, but we need to talk about those kinds of things. We need to know what NCAP's doing. We need to know what you're doing in your different programs. We have Sam, you're not on they didn't write this down for me to talk about you, but Sam is here in business technology, and and Bill Owens is here. This is what we do. We're out in the community doing a collaborative thing with the Goodwill programs and programs that we have, and our service learning people who are here working to find out what the needs are. And I'm getting away from it. Let me go back to my page. We know that education makes a difference. Education leads to better employability, higher wages, and ultimately lower recidivism rate. Part of Metro's community outreach is to ex-offenders and the monthly table talk, and we help connect people to resources and programs, not just the college, but throughout the state. The idea is to have a dialogue. What we are doing today, talking about what's going on in our community, getting a feel of what's out there so that we'll know about the pardoning citizens. You know, I have people that I talk to that have been released from prison for 20 years. And then when I say, are you going to go to vote? No, I can't go to vote because I'm an ex-offender. They don't even know that they have the right to vote. So we let them know that if you've been out, yes, and you haven't, you can, after 2 years, you have that right to vote. And it may be some more stats with that. I don't know. I'm not following up that. But after 2 years, you do have that right to vote. But many of them have been sitting out there 25 years and have not voted because they think that I'm an ex-offender and I can't vote. All of this help empower and not enable ex-offenders. And that's something the entire community can celebrate. After all this, we may be asking yourself, how does this apply to me? Very simply. If you or someone is interested in continuing their education, obtaining a GED, take classes to update job skills, or pursue a hobby, Metro Community College is for you. To begin, visit our website. Write it down. Our website is www.mccneb.edu. Or you can call 402-457-2400, and they'll give you all the answers. I'm so glad that Randy defined who he was. He said we only have one president. Well, see, I've been thinking that they said this is my community, my college. I've been thinking I was the president. I got everybody saying that, I know everything and I do everything in Metro. But it is. This is my community and my college, and I hope you feel the same way. If the college can be of service to you, your organization, or as a referral, please let our staff in the room know. Where are the staff in here? Metro staff, will you raise your hand? Raise your hand high, okay. So people will know. They'll tell you what you can do, what they have to offer. Thank you all. On the behalf of our community, what you do day after day has a huge impact on those who serve. We know everything. Call me, because I got a list. I send out a hot job list every Monday, even from probation, people who will actually hire ex-offenders. We put that list out, and we can give you that friendly list of people. Now, you know, like you go, you got to go and sell yourself on a job or anything, but the opportunities are there. Thank you. Are there any questions? How I do, Bob? Did I stay? Okay. I got to reading. When you get 80 years old, you can't read. No questions? Shame on you. Okay. All right.
Next, I would like to introduce Craig Howell. He's from the mayor's office.
Thank you. I come here originally with one hat, but I really have two. I am the mayor's chief service officer, and that means that I'm in charge of the Omaha Serves program and volunteerism in the city, and we work hard to develop capacity building programs to use the resources we have to deal with poverty, not from top down, but from bottom up, and try to create grassroots empowerment to lift people up. And that applies here, but there's another hat. I do know what it's like to run businesses, and I have owned businesses, and I've seen the good times of owning businesses, and I've seen the bad times of owning businesses. I've had to do hires, and I've had to do fires. And so I know what it's like when you're facing this as an employer. To me, this issue of hiring somebody with a past is an economic issue and a human rights issue. And we always must keep track of the economics of the issue, but never, ever lose focus of the humanity of the issue and the human rights focus, which is, in the end of the day, probably more important. From an economic standpoint, we all know that what you want your business to do is to grow. And as it grows, you run into the wonderful luxury of needing more employees, which you always need even if you're not doing well. But when you're doing well, you need more employees, and you can pay for them and hire them. But then you learn something that those who have owned small businesses, we tend to learn over and over again, and that is it's better to have no hire than a bad hire, because a bad hire will cost you a lot more. And over again, we relearn no hire is better than a bad hire. And we also know that you hire not just to fill a need, but to find that right fit in your business, and that person who will do good work will be doing good work in a professional manner, and someone that you can trust will be there on time, and trust will do the job the way you want it to do. Those are the factors that come into play often with this issue. And I have found that and I do believe it is an economic issue to hire people and not pay so much attention to their past. Thousands of people re-enter our city each year from corrections. Thousands of people enter our community each year. And these are some things I think we all can agree on. Too often, the re-entry issue is a recidivism issue, and people come back into our society and go back and come back, and we have a little cycle going on. Is that right? And we know that that hurts us. It costs us in terms of human lives. It costs us in terms of those human resources. It costs us greatly. And it has to end. I think to have this problem end requires some shifts in focus. We need those whose past tense is a criminal record. We need them to live in the present tense as valued people with hope, so that in the future tense, they can be productive people and be safe members of the community. So the key is that not only us as in the society and employers stop viewing someone as an ex-convict or an ex-offender, but as someone who has a past tense that is not the same as their present tense, and that applicant also understand that as well, and be proud of who they currently are, and proud of their future that's ahead of them with hope. If we do that, I think wonderful things can happen. But again, it has to be a mutual benefit to the employer who hires a person with a past criminal record for that to happen. Both employer and the job applicant have to understand that the applicant has a past criminal record and it's present, and that is different than the present tense. Now, about the economic sense of this. The person with a past criminal record, I have found when I've seen applications, when that person comes up to me and says, I have a past, and also shows that after that past, there is training, and that's why we have such wonderful organizations as NCAP and Heartland Workforce Solutions. And someone shows, I have come out, I have been trained, and especially also if they've been through some mentoring, through mentoring organizations. To me, that is a statement of someone who is of high value, because they have come back and re-entered with vigor and with a lot of hope and energy. And that should be rewarded. So you look for the person that has that type of energy, and I think they have proven the right for a second chance opportunity. The population is generally undereducated, underskilled, and with a background challenge. And that's why NCAP and Heartland Workforce Solutions is so doggone important, and need to be supported and encouraged and promoted constantly so that they are used. Employers also have to recognize, and this is something that I think when we think about it in running businesses, it is always true. If you take a risk with somebody, if you give somebody a second chance, that employee knows that. And let's move away from just thinking, oh, they are ex-offenders, but they're individuals with a past that is not pretty. If you give an individual a second chance who comes to you and says, I want a job, but I do have a past that includes suffering from a mental illness, but I know I had the courage to face that depression and face that mental illness, and I am here looking for a job. You're giving that person a second chance. And that's my phone. But if also if someone comes to you and they say, I want a job, but I'm suffering from the fact that I faced bankruptcy or I faced foreclosure of my home, okay? You're going to give that person a second chance and you'll be rewarded. If they say, I have made mistakes, but those mistakes are public records, it's the same thing. Give that person a second chance, and I think you will find, and there's actually data that shows that those individuals will be highly motivated and realize what you have given them. The Texas Workforce Development, I understand, has some data out that shows that hiring of of people with a past criminal record has led to highly motivated and loyal employees. Finally, there's something else to never forget. It's in the brochures. You have the tax advantage of the work opportunity tax credit. If you hire, I think it's within the 1 year of the release, if you make the hire. And there's some nice information in the brochure about that. And employees should never forget about that. But let's talk about the human rights issue, because that's the most important thing. I have not used the word ex-convict or ex-offender for a reason. This is not about what, but whom. Not what, but whom. As a business owner, I have had employees take from me, and they did not have a criminal record in the past. I have had employees with very poor behavior, and they did not have criminal records in their past. I have had to fire individuals. They did not have criminal records in their past. And I have had the best employees who carried severe scars from their past. You see, each of us carries with us sins, right? We have all made those mistakes. However, most of us, the sins of our past are concealed. Some of us, the sins of our past violated law, and so they carry a public record. And because of that, they pay the rest of their lives while our sins are concealed. We have to come to grips with that fact. And if that individual has been trained, is qualified, fits the purpose for the opening that you have, and their only problem is that the sin they committed is a public record while your sins are concealed, you must consider, are they trained? Are they qualified? Do they fit the purpose of this job? Do they deserve the second chance that I would have given somebody else? And I think that is important in a human rights aspect. We need to go beyond the what of a person's past and look at the present. True rehabilitation is more than a GED program, and I think we all know that. Rehabilitation requires the community to say we welcome you back and we're ready to join you in a future of hope. And that makes economic sense. True reconciliation is not just forgetting the past, it's forgiving it and moving on. All of us have enjoyed being receiving second chances. Now, heck, for me, I think there's third and fourth chances. So if we receive those, we certainly have a societal obligation to return that and pay it forward and give someone those second and third chances. And I think that's the message I have. Thanks.
I'm going to introduce Larry Garnett, a board member at NCAP.
Okay, how's everyone doing?
Fine.
Well, I'm here pinch hitting for my good friend Reverend Ford. He was the executive director for NCAP, and he's moved on to other opportunities, so he asked me if I would step in and do this for him. So I literally typed this as I was driving here. I don't recommend anybody doing that. It's kind of like drinking and driving. But you know, I listened to a lot of the conversations about returning citizens, and that's what we refer to them at NCAP. And it talks about a lot of things that you could do for returning citizens after they're released from their legal obligations. Personally, I think it should be a two-pronged approach. I think the preparation should start before they ever are released. That should start in prison itself. And unfortunately, in some states, especially those where the prison system is privatized, there's no vested interest. These organizations have no vested interest in rehabilitation because they make all their money on recidivism. So So I think that preparation should first start, and it behooves states to invest in that. I mean, I know that dollars are limited, but how much more would the state save if they invested on the front end with a returning citizen to help prepare them for when they leave prison? They'd be better prepared and better prepared to for whatever job opportunities that might come up. Because basically each year over 500,000 individuals complete their legal obligations and re-enter society with hopes of beginning a new life. And many of them suffer from a variety of difficulties, chief of which is finding stable employment. And even for those who find employment, they tend to be underemployed, which causes them to have to scrape by just to exist. And unfortunately, a lot of these returning citizens get tired of scraping by, and sometimes end up returning to their old lifestyle. And these low employment rates generally tend to turn into high recidivism rates and a possible return to prison. Now, in order to counteract that, we talked about, I've heard, the overall theme that I heard with everyone who got up here and spoke is second chances. And what I call a second chance a small deviation or course correction to one's life. And sometimes all it takes is one small deviation to completely transform a life. Now, how many people have ever heard of John Newton? John Newton.
No.
John Newton was the type of guy who lived a very reprobate life. He wasn't the type of individual anyone would ever want to spend any time with at all. John Newton was a captain of a slave ship, and we all know how difficult the Middle Passage was and what life was like on a slave ship. So John Newton, as we could assume from that, John Newton lived a very reprobate life. Now, on one of his passages across the Atlantic, John Newton's ship ended up navigating into a horrific storm. And the ship was tossed and turned, and John Newton thought that he might not make it. So in that time of despair, John Newton, God reached out to John Newton and gave John Newton that little nudge that transformed his entire life. Now, that same thing could happen with returning citizens. One of the greatest achievements that John Newton ever accomplished, and all of you know it if I would actually come out and say it, but at Eastern Nebraska Community Partnerships, through our Open Doors to Success program, we try to provide that gentle nudge and that course correction in the lives of returning citizens to help them to prepare for those opportunities that might arise. We also help them with the challenges that they may face that you may not be able to see, such as drug abuse, or maybe coming from a broken home or an abused situation through our award-winning behavioral sciences program, the behavioral health services program, and I'm not saying that they might come out and do something as great as what John Newton did, but that small deviation could mean so much in a person's life. And getting back to John Newton, how many of you have ever heard the song called "Amazing Grace"?
Yes.
John Newton was the author of that song. So that little nudge, just that little course correction was enough to turn his life in a completely different direction. And later on, he lived his life as a poet and a clergyman. So what we do in this room and the things that we do in our organizations to support returning citizens could have ripple effects that we may never know or may never see. But if we don't take the time to support and invest in returning citizens and identify those companies who are friendly to returning citizens, then the alternative is recidivism, high crime rates. They may be the person who breaks into your home tomorrow night. Now, I'm proud to say I work for a company called Valmont Industries, who actually considers returning citizens and looks at them as individuals and not just the fact that they made a mistake and just give them a blanket refusal. you know, Valmont takes a look at each individual, evaluative case-by-case basis. I know a young man who was in one of my training classes last month who had spent 2 years in prison. He had a very challenging life. And he sat there and you know, he talked to me a lot after the training class, but he was extremely grateful for the opportunity that he received from Valmont. I mean, to look at him, he looked like a new man. He felt very good about himself. He felt like his life was on the right track for once. Even though he came from a very challenging background, he felt, to look at his eyes were bright, and he looked like he was optimistic and excited about the future. And that's the thing we have to do for people, to returning citizens. We have to get them excited about the future, excited about the possibilities. In order to do that, we have to show them that a future really exists. And one of the things, with this forum, I'd like to see in the future more employers show up at these forums, more hiring managers in these forums listening to what it is we're saying. And maybe the message might get through to them. You know, through open doors, through programs like Opening Doors to Success, employers will actually get an employee who's been taught how to be a good employee. And I mean, how many employees are potential employers are you going to find like that? They've already been taught, you know, the importance of coming to work on time, the probationary period, you know, how to conduct themselves in the workplace, how to walk, talk, and dress. You know, I mean, it's a win-win situation for most employers. So I would like to see in the future if there's some way that we can invite some hiring managers to this forum so they could hear exactly what we talk about here and hear some of the things, especially that Ms. Love is doing for returning citizens to help to make them more productive people. So with that, I'll close because I don't want to be, you know, too wordy. But okay, well, thank you, and thank you for coming out, and please consider what I said before. One thing I have before I close, I used to work for Goodwill Industries. The one thing I used to do, and I worked dealing with the interface between employers and the Goodwill agency. And one thing I used to do is make sure I had employers in the room with us when we talked about the things that we were doing for our participants, when we talked about the training program that we had and all the mechanics involved in it. Yeah, I made sure they were there hearing that so they understood what it is we were doing, what we were trying to accomplish, and can hear the benefits to their organization that hiring participants from our program would give to them. Because, you know, I mean, what's the model in business, really? Quid pro quo, right? This for that. So, you know, in businesses, it's not enough to say, we're doing all these good things here, you know, we're training them, blah, blah, blah. But the best thing, what's important to a business is what's in it for them and what advantages do hiring these people from your program have for them. And that's what they're going to want to hear. And so that's why I think it's important to have them in this forum. And another thing you pointed out, education is very important. It is the key to opening a lot of those doors to success. And some people, you know, some people, a 4-year traditional college might not be the route for them, you know, and I think it does a disservice to those who are great with working with their hands to consider that to be the only option. You know, working in a manufacturing management environment, I can tell you that there are blue-collar workers that are machinists and pipe fitters and electricians that make more than teachers make. You know, especially when they work overtime. Because I have people that work for me now that make over $20 an hour. And when they work overtime, which we're doing quite a bit of right now, they actually make more than teachers with 4-year degrees. So that's also another avenue to consider. When you consider a person's talents, you know, like do a survey to find out where their talents lie, and don't just pigeonhole people or think that there's only one way to success or one avenue, because there's a lot of opportunities in the trades right now. A lot of the tradespeople, in case you don't know, a lot of people who work in the trades right now are mostly baby boomers who are retiring right now, and there are not enough people coming up behind them to take those jobs. Those jobs pay a lot of money for just a 2-year degree. So that's another thing to consider. It's better to be proactive than reactive, and that's my motto on everything. Because when you're reactive, it's too late.
Right.
You know, it's already passed. It's after the fact.
And you see, that's something that Sandra Love and I have been talking about since 2009. We've met with people and said that this training need to be, as soon as they enter the corrections, we need to start that training and prepare them for it, so they're not finally getting the message.
They're told.
But had to get the money first, huh?
Yes, gotta have the money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a case of, you know, pay me now or pay me later. You know, you start up front, and I think the state will find that over time they're going to save a lot of money, you know, on cost of housing prisoners, because there'll be fewer and fewer. You know, the law of diminishing returns. You know, so if you front load a lot of those preventive measures, I think you find on the back end you'll start to see fewer and fewer people who recidivate.